Welcome to another episode of Life Interrupts Us, the podcast. I'm your storyteller, Stephen Wayne, and today, this is what we call a standalone episode. It's not connected to season one on relationships. Although thinking now, it could have been. It's not connected to season two, the journey of the creatives that's coming. This is all on its own. This is an island of one, and this story that I'm getting ready to present to you, when I heard bits and pieces of it, I had to have my friend come on and bless us with her journey. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce all of you to Jayla, the self-esteem queen.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here. Yes, and you got to say it that way, Jayla, comma, the
The self-esteem
self-esteem
queen.
queen. Yes.
Correct. Correct.
Um, I am enamored and in awe of the fact that you are sitting here based on the 20 minutes of what you told me your life has been about. So I normally start the podcast off with a story of my own. But honestly, I got nothing. I got nothing, and they don't need me wasting the tape's time and wasting your time filibustering about some story that's not going to connect. We need to get to your story. And I know your story is layered, multi layered. It has several things, several elements. Um, I want you to tell us, and you know I'm going to jump in and ask you a few questions, but I want you to tell us your story the way you enjoy telling, or I don't even know if enjoy is a word I would use, the way you have found power in sharing your story.
Sure. So first of all, let me say it's a pleasure to tell a story when you're healed from it. And I think that is the most important part. People can go through trauma and never heal, and then every time they tell the story, they're still connected, and then the tears come and the histrionics. I'm healed from my story. So I can tell my story in a way that people can understand it, find empathy in it, and then move forward because of it.
Okay. Okay.
So I'm just a regular nigga.
I feel you. I feel you on that.
I was raised in Southern California, then moved to Northern California, and I really had like a normal life like everybody else until my mom experienced a divorce, and that divorce changed her life. And then the men that she picked weren't great men, and at one point she picked somebody that basically made her choose between him and her kids, and she chose him.
Mm.
So I was left at an airport when I was 14 and a half, and we did not have cell phones. I don't even know if we had beepers, but we definitely did not have cell phones. So I made my way to Compton to stay with my biological father's family, who didn't really care for my mother. And I ended up being trafficked because I had to pay rent at 14 and a half. And you and I both know that you can't even get a work permit at 14 and a half.
No.
So I ended up joining a gang. And instead of hoeing on the street corner, I was hoeing in the trap house, protected. And so I don't.
Wait. See, that's what I'm talking about. Like when we talked about that in an overview, but not what. First of all, you were attracted, so you were sex trafficked.
Correct. But back then they didn't call
They didn't
it
call
that.
it that,
That wasn't the term. So you were just a teen prostitute.
right? Same, yes. But then you said you were trafficking in a trap house.
Correct.
So you were a prostitute in a drug house?
Correct.
How does that even work? I don't even know that I've heard of that.
Sure. So living in Compton and it being really new to me, I thought stuff like Boys in the Hood was just a movie.
Okay.
And one day I had on all red, my red Guess shorts, my red and white Guess shirt, and somebody pulled up on me and was like, "You from around here?" And they probably could tell that I was not from around there because I was bubbly. Yeah, I live over there. And they were like, these aren't the colors that you.
What part of
This is
Compton were
not
you living in?
right off of Laundry in Wilmington behind Miracle Market.
Okay. Okay. All right. Yeah. I lived in Compton, so I know
Mm-hmm.
Compton well.
Nutty Block Hood.
Yes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. I lived in Compton in 2 different phases of my life,
Okay.
so I know Compton very well.
Okay. And so the person who helped me, shout out Woody, Big Woody, he made sure that that I was not on the streets, and I appreciated being introduced to the gang life that way, because I was very green in it all. I went to Gardena High, so I'm one of the last of the Mohicans. So I took the number 3 bus because I was terrified to go to Compton High because I was raised in the suburbs.
I went to Gardena High's Sadie Hawkins dance once.
Okay.
I had people at Gardena.
that was my school, and so I was an honor student by day, and then selling my body by night. And it wasn't, for me, it wasn't a negative experience. What happened was, before the trap house, I was just out hoeing, and then I was at the Willow Tree Inn.
Wow.
Off the 91 freeway.
I know where it is.
And I was gang raped by the Compton police.
Jesus.
And at that time I was 15. And I remember the officers because 2 of them became sheriffs later. When the Compton police were disbanded and they taken over by the sheriffs.
Yeah.
And saw them years later. But it was a very lonely and traumatic situation for me because I've always been an introvert. So I've had to live an extroverted life in order to go along to get along with people. But I'm really a standoffish type of individual. I don't really like people. I mean, I can tolerate them.
Sure.
But, trauma.
I feel you. So you're 14, 15, you're taking the bus to Gardena. You said you were an honor student.
I was.
You're an honor student by day. You said you're a hoeing by night.
Yeah.
Was this pre-trap house hoeing? Was this voluntary? How did you end up having to do that?
My relative told me I had to pay rent because she didn't like my mother. So I'll take it a step back. When I was coming up, I didn't find out until the 8th grade that the person that I thought was my dad was not my dad. Oh. And I thought that my dad was just my babysitter's son. And then I found out that that was my grandmother and that was my dad. And I had been around my dad since, I guess, birth, but I hadn't met his mom, or she hadn't been introduced to me until I was 2.
Okay.
And so there was animosity there because they all lived in Compton, but yet, Yeah. And so I'm a love child. My mom was married, and I'm a love child. I'm not ashamed or embarrassed by it.
We don't have nothing to do with you.
And I don't.
We don't get in the line and like, which one of these people do I want to be born by? I want that hot threesome. Let me come out of that group.
Right. Exactly. My dad was in and out of prison, and the great thing about my dad is he must have loved my mom so much that he would write me from prison. He would. I still have letters from my dad from prison. And I really just thought that he was like my play uncle. I didn't even know he was my dad.
Wow.
Until the 8th grade. And then I found out that this man is my dad. And I found out by eavesdropping on a conversation that my mom was having with somebody. So it wasn't like somebody just told me. I found out that way. And I think that was the start of the decline of my relationship with my mom.
Okay.
Because to feel lied to in that way is one thing, but my mom had just got divorced, and then she quickly was getting remarried, and I was moving from Northern California back to Southern, leaving all my friends. And I just felt like, as a kid, you didn't even consult with us, you didn't even ask us, did we want to do this?
Didn't matter like that.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So it was not. I think that my relative was taking the anger that she had on my mother out on me. And now we call that trafficking. Years of therapy, I had to finally realize your relative trafficked you. You weren't just a teen prostitute, you were being trafficked, because if you have to give that person money every month, you're being trafficked.
No, okay. So did the relative know that that's how you were getting the money? Or did the relative tell you that's how you need to go get the money?
This relative is a pillar in the AME church to this day.
Wait, first of all, let me tell you something. I am a Jesus dude, but I will tell the truth about the church 10 days out of 10. So I don't care nothing about no AME, no 𝐾𝐨𝐧, no non-denominational, no Southern Baptist, no Northern Baptist. I don't care about none of that. I'm going to keep it real, because I have seen church my whole life, and I've seen a lot that doesn't line up with that book.
Yep.
So come on. So I don't care if she was AME or CME or UME.
Well, she would have us go to church on Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And, she basically told me that I had to pay rent. Unbeknownst to me, she was getting money from the county. I didn't know that either. But,
oh, my Lord.
I don't, do I believe she knew? Yes. And I'll tell you why. So there's a tire shop in LA called Fairmont Tires. It's on Slauson off the 110 freeway.
Yes, I know it.
And the owner of that tire shop was my first trick.
And I have a story of why I know it.
The owner of that tire shop was my first trick. She got free tires because he took me to the back and had me perform fellatio on him.
You were there.
I was
no,
there.
She was there.
She was there.
Yeah, see, that's like a scene from Hustle and Flow. Like, I need that microphone. Do what you do.
Yeah.
Ooh, Lord, that's tough. Okay, yeah. I'm having to wrap my mind around that moment, because I've already understood what has transpired. But that moment, when you see it on a TV screen, in a film, you go, "Oh man, that's crazy." But when you hear it in real life, it hits you different.
Very different.
It hits you different. And I won't even chase down the rabbit hole of the whole church thing and AME thing, because I am very certain that you can go to church every day and still wake up in hell.
That is correct.
So but keep going. I can't. I can't even. I'm normally not at a loss of words. I ain't got no words yet.
So I graduated from Gardena High, and in the midst of me going to Gardena, I joined the speech and debate team. Had never done speech and debate, and ended up taking Gardena High to the speech and debate championships, where I made 6th in state. And then there was a competition at Loyola Marymount University. So I went there and I did thematic interpretation. So I would take like 3 different poems about the Black woman, and I would act them out. So it was The Negro Mother by Langston Hughes, Ain't I a Woman by Sojourner Truth, and Phenomenal Woman. And I would act all 3 of those out. And when I was at LMU, I won first place, novice. Let me just say that there was not one family member at not one of my speech tournaments. I never had anybody to come support me, cheer me on. This was just something that I did.
So, all right, hold on, Queen. You were an honor student. Did you stay an honor student throughout high school?
I did.
Okay, you were an honor student. You were a sex worker.
Yes.
At night. Drug to church multiple days a week.
Correct.
Debate team.
Correct.
And gangbanger.
I mean,
where did you have time to be a
the
gangbanger part is weird, because like, where did you even have time to be that?
Sure. So they didn't, I wasn't like on the corner like banging. They would use me for like home invasions and stuff like that.
Okay.
So I was the one that they would use to sort of butter somebody else up and then that's how they would get into the person's house.
Wow.
So, I should probably be doing 25 to life, but by the grace of God, I'm here, which is why I do good for the world, because I know how it could have turned out for me.
Sure, absolutely.
I know how it could have turned out.
In several different directions.
Yes, correct.
Several different directions.
Correct.
From HIV to prison to
correct.
The grave.
Yeah.
To your family actually being hurt.
Correct.
Because there's collateral damage that goes along with some of the things that you participate in.
You are correct.
Okay. So you were like a multitasker. You were a multi-lifer.
That is correct.
Yeah, you were a multitasker. But what struck me when you talked about the debate thing, because I was approached about being in debate when I went to University of Laverne, and I turned it down because I didn't have time. I'm really good at it, but I didn't have time. I am not an introvert, but I have an introvertic, if that's even a word, compartment where I like to lay back and be quiet and just look.
Yeah.
I'm the guy that walks in a room, and unless it's a room I know the people are already in, I walk in and I go find a corner and I sit quietly and I scan the room. I scan the room for the people, the personalities, and the exits.
Correct.
Because I'm always ready for whatever.
That's me.
But how do you pull off being an introvert doing all of the things that you've done? Debate and dramatic interpretation and all the things that are so, well, I guess it's kind of like a Sasha Fierce versus Beyonce, because Sasha Fierce is her outward personality, but she says, I'm very, very reserved and within my own space.
I feel like God gave me a lot of talents, and I think
He did. I agree.
Thanks a lot. And I think a part of that extroverted part is the part of me that I probably always wanted to be, but trauma. And so I just remained comfortable being an introvert.
Sure.
And then I built a career being a motivational speaker. I'm sure we'll get into that later.
Yeah.
And so I do a lot of extroverted things because I'm a servant leader and I help people for a living. But in my private downtime, I don't really talk much.
Yeah. Yeah. I even see on your social media, you don't post a lot.
Not unless I have something to say.
Yeah. And when you do, you hit something and then you're gone.
Not unless I have something to say.
Wow.
And that's the thing. People want to be popular.
Sure.
But I've been around since before social media. I had a business before social media. So I'm not interested in being popular. I'm not interested in everybody knowing who I am. I don't want everybody to know who I am. I like being in my own little world.
Well, then you're safe here then, because Life Interrupts has only got about 10, 12 followers. You'll be fine here.
And counting.
Right. Okay, so LMU, that's so interesting, right? I lived in Compton. I hung out at Gardena, begged my mama to let me go there because someone that was very close to me was there. And I spent a lot of time hanging out at Loyola Marymount.
Wow.
Because that person that went to Gardena went to Loyola Marymount.
Small world.
And my daughter got waitlisted a few years back for Loyola Marymount. I've had great memories of Gardena, the city, the school, and Loyola Marymount.
Okay.
So I'm sitting here going, wow, that's crazy. She's been some places that I've been. And I find that phenomenal as it pertains to how we track in our life, or in our lives rather, where we're in spaces where other people have been or other people are coming, and then there's this intersection where you connect with them and you go, hey, wait a minute, who do you know?
Right.
You start asking those questions. So I remember you telling me that you ended up going to Loyola.
Right.
On a scholarship.
Correct.
Was that in part because of that thing that you won?
Definitely. So the president of the university at that time, Father O'Malley, was there. I didn't know who he was. I didn't know who he was. And when I won, of course, again, no family, nobody there to cheer me on.
Yeah.
And so I was crying after I won, because it's like, wow, you win this big trophy. I had never really done speech and debate, and I was really just so good at it.
Mm-hmm.
And there was nobody there like, wow, congratulations.
Yeah.
Like,
no personal celebration.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so he pulled me to the side and he said, "You ever thought about coming here?" And I was like, no. No. Why would I want to come? I wanted to go to Berkeley. So I was like, why would I want to come here? I didn't know that LMU was as prestigious as it was.
Yes.
I didn't know.
Yes. Excellent school.
And so he introduced me to a wonderful man named Charles Mason, who worked in undergraduate.
Dark-skinned Charles Mason?
Of course. Yeah. Charles Mason. That's my dog.
Charles Mason was the person that was working as hard as he could to try to get my daughter in there.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, "I'm sorry, Mr. Phillips. I've been trying and trying. It's a school where a lot of African American kids end up at.
Yeah,
they have a nice population of African Americans to be the kind of school that it is.
Correct.
And he did everything he could, because I have several friends that went there. I reached out, hey, somebody got to help me. Who do I need to talk to? You need to talk to Charles Mason.
Mm-hmm.
I think I still have his number in my phone.
I worked in undergraduate admissions the whole 4 years that I was there.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Right under him.
Wow. I'm telling you, this world is getting smaller and smaller. Jayla.
Correct.
It's getting smaller and smaller.
Correct.
Okay.
So he got me in, and my freshman year I had a 1.9 GPA.
Sound like my
Horrible.
College shot you in the mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then my sophomore year, I was going through a lot of mental health issues, and so I dropped out for a semester,
mm-hmm.
and then ended up going back and, just kind of killing it. My major was communication studies with an emphasis in public speaking, and the minor was theology. And I really wanted theology because I wanted to learn about different religions.
Mm-hmm.
So I grew up Jehovah's Witness.
Okay.
In my mom's home, and then ended up at this relative's house in the AME church. And I just really wanted to know about different religions. So I took a Buddhism class there, a Hinduism class there, was taught by a wonderful man who was a Quaker.
Mm-hmm.
Just a great experience. And I graduated from college and was homeless because that relative wouldn't let me come back and live in that house.
Okay, so now I need to back up. I need to go back to your first year
Mm-hmm.
for two reasons. One, and these are those moments where I said I'm gonna have questions. So when you went off to college,
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming you went and moved on campus.
I did. Horrible experience.
Did you continue your nightlife work?
I did. So I became a professional escort for a company in Los Angeles that's no longer around. And at that time, the Lakers practiced on LMU's campus.
Yes.
And so that is where I began my life as an escort.
Okay.
And that's where I really developed my love for entrepreneurship. Because as an escort, it's a little different. You work for an agency, they take most of the money, but I learned that if you befriend
mm-hmm.
your clients,
you got a contact.
You have a contact. And if you tell them, we'll charge you less and you could bring more people, that you could make more money. And so I really just started my entrepreneurship journey as an escort. I am not the person who is going to say I had like a horrible experience. I didn't. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that I was molested as a kid
mm-hmm.
by my uncle. And so I was addicted to the sensation of an orgasm at an early age.
Yeah.
And so I didn't associate sex with love, but I did associate sex with
a really good feeling.
Correct.
A great feeling.
Correct.
And yes, sex is, when it's great, it's great.
Correct.
So if there's no pain involved, and you experience that at whatever age, it can steer your whole life.
But it also gave me a sense of acceptance because as I would get repeat clients, what that for me was, I have family that don't really care about me, but these people care enough about me to come back and make sure that I'm making money, and they like me enough to like what I do. And so it was a place of belonging for me. It was less about the sex and more about these people care about me in this way. And every situation as an escort is not all about sex.
Sure.
Sometimes you're escorting someone somewhere. Sometimes you're waiting in a room for someone, like Pretty Woman. Like, there are different ways that you can escort. And I learned a lot. I gained a lot of knowledge and just valuable information from the people that I was with. And I just don't have these horror stories to tell. And at the same time, I'm never going to write a book and, talk about, because I think that anonymity is really important.
Sure.
And I think that just being true to myself, I wasn't doing it to name names.
Right.
I was doing it to make money.
Right. So did you evolve into a sort of a madam of your own?
Nope, not at all. There were other people that I knew that were escorting. And so I just helped them to jump on my train.
Okay.
I didn't, like if there was someone who wanted to bring 2 or 3 other people, I would say, oh, okay, well, I can find 2 or 3 other. So it was more so me leading them to the money, and less of, I wasn't like encouraging them, oh, do this life. They were already in the life.
Right. All right.
So it's like,
and
okay,
they weren't working for you.
That is correct.
They were your co-workers.
They were
your
my
colleagues.
That is correct. They were my colleagues. That is correct.
Wow.
Yeah.
So did you do that the entire time you were at Loyola?
No. So towards my junior year, I stopped because we're going to circle back to the person at Fairmont Tires. He paid for me to study abroad.
Interesting.
He helped me to start my first business out of college. But he was really instrumental in teaching me about the game of life. So I would service him, but we would also have conversations. We would also go out to dinner. 𝐷eLiU&x's. He would take me out to dinner. He would take me places, and we would just sit and have conversation. And so I value those moments.
Did he consider you his woman?
No, he's married.
Okay. All right.
No, I mean, and there were many more of me's that he had.
Okay.
So I wasn't the only one.
Okay.
There were many more me's, but I took the opportunity to ask a lot of questions because obviously he's wealthy. He is one of the largest distributors of tires in California. And also he has a very philanthropic side. So he helps young girls go to nursing school. He was actually named Philanthropist of the Year at one point. And,
oh, man.
That's one of the reasons why I'm so unbiased and I really don't judge people, because although that's how I was introduced to him, he was very instrumental in teaching me what college didn't.
Yeah, I can see that.
So I went back my junior year of college. I just decided this is, not what, and I had made good money. This is not what I want to do. But also I was trying to get my mental health together.
Okay.
So I stopped, but was still in college. But every now and again, if I got a call, because I stopped working for the agency.
Okay.
So every now and again when I would get a call, I would take a client or two, but it wasn't my main focus. I really wanted to graduate from college.
Now, while you were at college, were you able to be a successful introvert? Like, were you a part of any sororities? Were you at the parties? Were you hanging out? Or were you just to yourself?
I was double majored, so I didn't have time. And I remember when I went to college, it was right after Tupac died.
Okay.
And so people were having like the candlelight vigils and stuff. And I was just trying to make sure that I could afford to go to college.
Mm-hmm.
So I wasn't really well liked.
Why?
But like I wasn't a member of the BSU because I was one of those, you know, does every nigga with dreads have to, you know, be for the cause? Like I was really, you know, like, can I please just go to school? I didn't feel a sense of family with the Black students.
Okay.
I didn't feel that. I didn't feel
Okay.
that. And I don't know if it was because a lot of these people knew each other, and then here I am coming in, or if I just wasn't really a people person at that time. But I wasn't interested in being friends or friendly with really anybody. And then my roommate was a white chick from Spokane, Washington.
Oh, I got family in Spokane.
Who didn't really probably care for Black people. And I had a really bad roommate situation. So I ended up moving off campus right after my freshman year and moving in with a man.
Wow. It's interesting when I think about some of the things statistically that happen to young women in college, from sexual assault to nervous breakdowns, episodal things. How did you? I would say, how did you escape some of that? Or the question really is, did you escape some of it?
Mm-mm. I like to say, I don't suffer from, I live with depression.
Okay.
I don't suffer from, I live with anxiety. And I've had to hold in a lot of things just to get by.
Okay.
And I feel like my only safe space in college were my professors. I mean, up until I still talk to two of them. And I've been out of college for over 20 years. And I still talk to two of them. There were people at Loyola who knew that I was troubled. And they made it their mission to make sure that I felt seen, heard, and wanted. And I'll never forget that. I'll never forget that. Charles Mason was one of them. He was one of them.
I could tell from meeting him that he was just dope. He was, and when he told me he was doing all he could, I believed him. And people who I trust were the ones who gave me his name.
Correct.
So my impression with him was, if my daughter gets here, she's gonna be taken care of.
Correct.
And she really wanted to get. She ended up at Pepperdine.
Okay. Really great school as
well.
well.
Yeah, good school. She had a very unique experience because she went to school. Her first year was when they had the fires. So after Thanksgiving break, they never went back to campus that year. And then the following year, COVID.
Right.
And so her whole 4-year college thing was like totally disrupted, totally interrupted. But Charles Mason left an impression. And it made me feel, when we were there for the tour, it made me feel so good to see a Black man connecting and being the beacon for these kids.
Yeah.
And I was like, you don't see that often in a non-Black school.
No, and his dedication to making sure that we were seen, acknowledged, and respected on that campus. There will never be another Charles Mason at that school.
Yeah.
And he will go down in history as the person that made sure we had Black student overnights, made sure that when we wanted to have spoken word events, like he was at every single event.
Now, did you participate in all of that stuff?
Some things, yeah, because I worked in undergraduate admissions.
And you're very talented. Obviously, you won awards and stuff. That did not allow people to gravitate to you? Or what did it do? Make you become even more ostracized?
I mean, I think there was a part of me that has always been very standoffish. Even though people are really nice to me, I'm not a really friendly person.
Okay.
I'm cordial.
Sure.
But I'm not really friendly.
Sure.
So I think I probably had a mean mug most of my college career.
Yeah.
I don't think that I came off as very friendly. And then I have a very low tolerance for stupidity. And that's been
Amen.
since a kid. And so it's really difficult for me to be around people who don't seem sincere.
Yeah.
Like I'm not her.
Yeah.
And then also trauma. I don't like people who ask me a lot of questions. Like
Sure.
when I was younger, it was like, why are you asking? Well, what do you want to know?
You're mysterious, and
Yeah.
people who are curious are gonna ask.
Correct.
They don't have a filter. They don't have the maturity to go, let me just lay back. And if something organic happens between she and I, great. If not, I'm gonna leave her where she's at. It's clear that's where she wants to be. She's not trying to come from over there.
Correct.
So
leave her there.
Yeah. Yeah. See, I had a similar experience when I was in high school. When I shifted from the 9th to the 10th grade, my mom moved me I went to Long Beach Poly in the 9th grade. In the 10th grade, she moved me to a private school. I knew one person at that school. He was a piano student of my grandmother's. He was a nerd. He was kind of quirky. He was a nice guy. But back then, I was way too into being cool.
Yeah.
And I was mad because I didn't want to be here. I wanted to be at Gardena with my play sister. And my mama was tripping. And I sabotaged my whole 10th grade year. I sabotaged my life, grades, everything. I was like, because I was mad, but I was also very standoffish. So I got labeled as he's conceited. He's this. I dressed really nice in high school. He's conceited. He's this. My grandfather owned a limousine business, so I came to school in a limousine in this private school every day. And the white kids would always ask, "Do you have money? Do you have money?" And I'm like, "What? Why are you guys asking me that?" But the black kids would all be like, I could see them. I would look and they'd be like, I was like, "Wow, all right." So I own that.
It's crazy how perception, when you're younger, it's crazy how perception can shape and shift how people befriend you, how they think about you, and how they treat you.
Yeah, it wasn't until basketball season that I actually started connecting, because I was a baller. But they didn't know that, because I stayed to myself. I ate lunch by myself. I kicked it by myself. I had a few people to try to befriend me, and they were cool, but for the most part, I did not want to be there. So when I don't want to be somewhere, I am very standoffish. Any other time, I'm so engaging. My wife says, you walk up to a stranger in a store and just start a conversation. Yeah, I'm good at that. I love doing that. But if I'm not in my right space, I don't want to be bothered with anybody. So I can imagine what you went through, especially at school, where you got thousands upon thousands of young people around you at all times. And then you got this nucleus of black people that are in your face.
Right.
And they don't know that you are literally Pretty Woman. You got a whole nother life going on at night, and you got all this stuff going on.
Correct.
That's a lot.
So I held a lot in.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah.
You know, I gotta say this. You are blessed. You are blessed.
And highly favored.
Yes, just for what I've heard to this point, you shouldn't be here. You shouldn't be here. You should be in the grave.
And I've attempted suicide 3 times, and I'm still here. So it's funny that you say that.
Well, you know, some people jump off the Golden Gate Bridge and they're unsuccessful. And they go, "God, what are you doing?" He's like, "No, what are you doing?"
Right. I need you here.
Yeah, it's like, you don't get it. I'm in control. What are you doing? Yeah, that's gonna hurt, but
I mean, in high school, I was a nerd. When I got to Gardena, everything that I had learned my 9th grade year, they were just doing in my 10th grade year. So it was all repetitive for me.
Sure.
And so I made friends by allowing people to cheat off my work. So I was a popular nerd.
Okay.
And
why you didn't monetize that? You was monetizing other stuff. Why didn't your business acumen stuff like, hey, $5 to write that paper for you?
I mean, it was just easier to just, kind of be with the popular people, but quiet enough to, you know, get by.
Mm-hmm.
And then I became popular. And then I ran for student government and won and stuff like that. So, I mean, I can't say anything, you know, negative about that, but I've always sort of been depressed and feeling like I wasn't supposed to be here.
Sure.
And I know a lot of that just has to do with trauma.
Yeah.
And we don't really touch on how trauma affects us and the way that we communicate with other people until we start to heal from it. And then we realize, oh wow, you probably could have had better friendships, you could have had better networking, but your trauma got in the way.
Yeah, it carved the path.
It did.
And until you step off the path you're on, it's the one you're on.
Yeah.
Having said that, you finished college.
I did.
And you said you couldn't go back home.
Mm-mm.
So where did you end up?
So I lived in my car.
Wow.
I had a 1999 black Honda Civic hatchback.
A college graduate of Loyola Marymount.
And I lived on the campus in the parking lot. Because I still had friends that went to school there. And so I would get out of my hatchback early in the morning and act like I was working out. And then I would see somebody know, like, oh, I just finished working out. Can I stop by and take a shower? Yeah. 88 days I was homeless.
Wow. So were you having trouble getting a job? Did the job that you had on campus leave when you graduated? So
when I was in college, my best friend went to USC.
Mm.
And
I'm sorry, I went to UCLA, so I'm sorry. Not sorry.
It's okay. She went to USC, and she was their first case of spinal meningitis.
Mm.
So right before I graduated from college, she passed away. Actually, March 22nd, she passed away. And in college, I didn't watch TV. I've always really been just like a studious type of person.
Soaking it up.
And so in one of my classes, they were talking about this person that had died. And at that time, I was doing my senior thesis. And I hadn't talked to my best friend. And then I was paging her. She wasn't replying. I thought she was mad at me because she had asked me to come to a party. And I was like, girl, I can't. I'm working on my thesis. And then come to find out that it was my best friend that died. And that was tragic for me because she asked for people to call me and nobody called me. I didn't find out that it was her until her brother called me to come clean out her apartment. So nobody bothered. She had been in the hospital. Nobody bothered to tell me. And the last time I saw her, I thought she had a cold. And I was like, girl, you better do what you have to do, because she played basketball. I was like, you better do what you have to do. Like, and so that was really tragic for me. And I wasn't able to get over that.
Sure.
And I wasn't looking for a job right out of college. I was really depressed. I had actually been arrested for stealing out of the Macy's at the Santa Monica Mall. And they felt so bad, they didn't even take me to jail, because I was like, yeah, my best friend died. And they just felt sorry for me.
Wow.
They really felt, I mean, they really, I got a lot of grace in that moment. But I just wasn't in a good place mentally. And then I got an apartment and I attempted to take my life in that apartment. And I took a whole bottle of pills and I was laying on the floor because I didn't have a bed. And my best friend came to me. And she was like, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing? And I got sick. I threw up. I should have been dead. But I literally got sick. I threw up. And then the next day, it was just kind of like, okay, you need to live, because I've been seeing spirits most of my life. From the age of 7, I've been seeing spirits. And to the point where my parents probably thought I was schizophrenic, as a kid, because I would definitely see spirits. And to this day, I see my ancestors walking around my house. I have conversations. Like, I know that I'm not alone here. I know that I've been protected here. But I just wasn't in a place mentally where I could function. I didn't have coping skills.
Right.
I didn't have them.
Right.
I didn't have them.
Right.
So and then also I had been estranged from my mom for like 10 years.
Sure.
So trying to rebuild this relationship with her while I'm dealing with all these internal things, and then having imposter syndrome. Like, okay, you graduated, now what are you going to do? It's like, well, I wanted to be a motivational speaker. I didn't know any. How do you start that? So it's like you don't have anybody to like mentor you, and you have to learn everything on your own.
Yeah.
And I didn't have high emotional intelligence then, so it was like, well, how do you do this? Where do you go? And I had to learn and navigate everything on my own. I didn't have people to help me get a job, or I didn't have that. I had to just hustle and navigate on my own.
Well, I mean, and it's clear that you kept things to yourself, because when you think about a person like Charles Mason, I know, you know him better than I do, but I know he would have helped you.
He would have, and I just didn't want to be a burden.
You couldn't go to him with it.
No, I just didn't want to be a burden.
Wow. Does he know of your journey now?
Yeah, he knows.
Yeah. I see it. You know, the way you paint it, I see it as though it's a digital aid right in front of me. And it's a cautionary tale about trauma. You keep saying that word. It's a extremely cautionary tale about it. We minimize and we reduce trauma to just being a moment. And when you see what it does to you internally, and then it doesn't stay there, it manifests.
Correct.
It puts you on a trajectory. It carves out your identity. It does all these things to you. And you go, no, I'm good. No, if you would deal with the trauma, then you'd be good. Right now, you're just coping.
Correct.
You're just getting by. So I'm trekking the timeline for you, right? From having to move to your family member's house and having to become a sex worker, all the way to now you're out of college, a prestigious college, and homeless, and then in an apartment with suicide. That's just a span of, a little less than a decade.
Correct.
And it's like, wow, so much trauma invasion in that time, and a lot of coping. You've done. We could literally stop this podcast right now and just talk about the coping that you have done from that little space in time.
Correct.
Because it's clear to me that wasn't the end of any of it.
No, and it wasn't the beginning, because I was pregnant at 15, and I had to get an abortion. I got the abortion at a place called 𝐟 Medical Clinic, which years later, the doctor went to jail for murder. But I felt the whole abortion because the anesthesia didn't work. It was a cheap place where you pay $250, and my father took me to get the abortion. Yeah. And after I got the abortion, they gave me a black trash bag to throw up in. And I got in the car with my dad, and he punched me in the stomach. And
this is the same dad that was writing you the letters?
Same dad.
Well, what?
And told me, don't ever have kids out of wedlock. So I got tough love.
So wait. You can just gloss over that. I can't gloss over that. What did he hit you for?
Because me being pregnant as a teenager was not in his plan. And let me be very clear. My father ended up in prison because when he was in high school, they had ran a train on a girl, and the girl came back and cried rape. He ended up having to go to youth authority, and he was upset. And that anger resulted in him becoming an alcoholic and then a functioning crack addict. But my father was extremely intelligent, extremely articulate, but he was also the black sheep. So he was treated very bad by my grandmother. And I watched that happen. I watched it happen. I watched how he treated her. I watched how then she treated him. He treated her with a lot of respect, and she treated him like he was not the wanted kid. And then I became the unwanted grandkid. So he didn't want me to go down that path. It's like, no, you're going to college. You're not going to have that happen.
Mm-hmm.
And so, true to form, I didn't get pregnant again until my 30s.
So you got pregnant at 15. Your father was out of prison at that time. But you were also a sex worker at that time. Did he know?
Yeah, but I didn't. I got pregnant by my high school sweetheart. So I knew who I was pregnant by.
How does one have a sweetheart when they got a busy nighttime life with several people?
So when my mom left me at the airport, we lived in Moreno Valley.
Yeah, I meant to double back to that. You said something about an airport. I was like,
yeah.
What?
Yeah. So when she left me at the airport, and it wasn't like that she dropped me off at the airport. I want to be clear. That wasn't what happened. I was a whistleblower because myself and my sibling were being abused. And I went on a trip to the Bay Area to see my stepfather. And I told. And my mom lost custody of my sibling. And she told my stepfather she can't stay there because that's not your child. And I got on the plane in Oakland. And by the time I got back to Ontario, my mom had changed her home number. And that's how I found out I didn't have a place to live.
So you were literally at the Ontario airport with nowhere to go. And
no numbers to call. And again, we didn't have cell phones. People don't just memorize numbers at that.
Right.
So the only number I had was this relative who, again, did not like my mother.
Right.
And made it her mission to let me know that, I should be very lucky that I was staying at her house.
Wow. Okay. That ties that airport thing up.
So I had a high school sweetheart. We went to high school together. And
Gardena.
No. Moreno Valley. So I went to I went to Valley View High School.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I taught at Canyon Springs.
Oh, okay. All right. So I went to Vista Heights. Okay. And then instead of going to Canyon Springs, I went to Valley View. So my high school sweetheart, I would go out to visit him. I got pregnant on purpose. Thinking that maybe that could save me somewhere, and it didn't save me. And my high school sweetheart ended up having a child by someone who looks just like me and named that child what I wanted to name our son.
Wow.
Yeah, lots of coping. So, I went through the pregnancy thing. I went through sort of dealing with a gang member who was also a gun runner. And the relative that I lived with, she knew that too, because he lived right across from her. So I always felt protected, but not really. I was used.
Yes.
And I was used, and that's how I felt protected. So I became the type of person that would give to everybody because I felt like the more that I give, the more protected I can feel around people.
Okay. Okay.
So that pretty much was how I entered my 20s.
Man, so you're in your 20s, you got an apartment,
Mm-hmm.
you've tried to kill yourself once,
Mm-hmm.
you have a vision.
Mm-hmm. And then I got a corporate job.
Well, you should have. You went to Loyola Marymount. You went to one of the most prestigious colleges in the West Coast. So you should have gotten a corporate job.
Yeah, and I wasn't a good cultural fit. And that became my career in corporate America. I was great in the interviews. They hired me for my intelligence and then bashed me for the same. Not just one job, every job. And so I went into motivational speaking.
Okay, so by the time you get into motivational speaking,
Mm-hmm.
have you put the sex worker away? Is that person gone now, the escort? Because you had evolved.
Yeah, so I became a born-again Christian and I became a Jesus freak.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Because that's what happens to people who've had some form of extremity in their life.
Yeah, and I feel like I was probably in like a spiritual psychosis because, I was really into the church. I was like deep into the church.
Yeah.
And at that time, I was working at UCLA.
Hey,
yeah,
go Bruins.
In one of the accounting departments, and everything was great. Had a black boss until a transient tried to rape me in the parking structure, and I had to sue UCLA because they didn't allow me to move where I parked.
Wait a minute. I don't understand. Move where you parked?
Yeah, so I parked in a parking structure that wasn't, I had to walk over to where my office was. The transient was in the parking structure in the stairwell.
Mm-hmm.
I was walking to my car and he grabbed me and tried to assault me. And so I asked, well, I'm traumatized. Can I like move my parking somewhere else? And they were like, no.
Wow.
What do you mean no? And then 2 months later, that same man was in Westwood Plaza at the Rite Aid, and I was walking out of the Rite Aid, and he remembered me, so they just let him out. Nobody told me, the police didn't tell me he was let out, nothing. And this man started throwing pennies at me, and, I had to call the police again. So now I'm traumatized. So now I go to the doctor, and they have me on medication, but you can't sleep in your office. So I wanted to move my car because I wanted to be able to lay down in my car after I took this medication for my lunchtime. They didn't want to let me just change my parking just to accommodate that. But they would accommodate other people, but they didn't want to accommodate me. So I ended up suing them, and I said, this corporate world is not for me. And at the same time, I was still going back on the streets because I still knew people that were prostitutes. Mm-hmm. So like sex workers. And so I was still going back, and then I would see teenagers on the streets. And I was like, man, why ain't nobody coming to rescue these kids? And there was a place in Van Nuys called Children of the Night. It's still around. And the woman, Lois Lee, amazing woman, they rescue trafficked teens, but they don't have space for everybody. And they were doing it mostly like in the Van Nuys, Sherman Oaks area, not really out Compton, LA, Long Beach, stuff like that. And so after I became a motivational speaker, I started rescuing sex trafficked teens.
Now, when you say rescue, what does that look? Can you paint a picture of what that looks like? Like, do you have a facility?
I did.
Okay.
I did for 10 years. And I didn't think that I would be doing it as long as this is my 25th year. So I didn't think I would be doing it this long. It was just, something that I felt like I wanted to do because nobody ever came to rescue me.
Sure.
And yeah, I had a facility, and I would take them and rehabilitate them, had a staff. They would go to school there. It was, for me, a great experience. But I had 83 kids that committed suicide.
Wow.
I've rescued over 5,500 kids.
Wow.
In 25 years.
Shout out to Jayla, Self-esteem queen.
But it was, for me, it was the way that I was able to network in the streets and get the respect that I didn't get in real life. So a lot of the OGs respected me.
Sure.
A lot of the pimps that weren't pimping underage girls respected me. And I had a network of people that, I used to have a toll-free number. So people would call me. And then if somebody was missing, then I would go out on the streets and look for them and find them. And I enjoyed doing it.
You're like the Frank Lucas of sex trafficking. You know how he was the biggest drug dealer in New York, but nobody knew it.
Right.
And he would be in plain sight.
Correct.
But you didn't know that that's who he was.
Correct.
It's like, because my mind, let me tell you how my mind works. I'm constantly putting things together, right? And as a storyteller, as a public speaker, you want sequence, and sometimes I like order.
Right.
And so I'm sitting there tripping going, she's doing all of this, but yet she's still introverted, still reserved. She's like Frank Lucas. It's almost as if she's in disguise.
Yeah. I felt very at home on the streets.
Yeah.
I felt very at home there.
Sure.
And so the process and the art of negotiation was, it was fun for me. It was fun for me.
That's your world.
Yeah. But then also I appreciated being able to facilitate parents and their kids getting along. So that's when I started really getting into emotional intelligence.
Okay.
Because a lot of the parents were just horrible parents.
Yeah.
And so it's not just, there's a kid on the street, go rescue him from the pimp. No, what was going on at home?
Yeah, how'd that person get out there?
Right, how'd they get there?
Yeah.
It wasn't just that they, were kidnapped.
Well,
No.
Parents died and they didn't know where to go. Like, there's a house with an address.
Right. What's going on in the house? And then just from my own background and understanding what I went through, you can have a good childhood and something will happen. And as an adult now, I understand that, our parents are not perfect, but it's like,
sure,
you don't really understand what's going on in somebody's house. So to take a kid and take them back to the house isn't the solution.
Mm-hmm.
And then I wasn't able really to have police involvement. And a lot of that had to do with the fact that police are pimps as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, and then the relationship that I had, my introduction to police and being gang raped, it's like, I'm not calling y'all to help me.
Right.
So I had to call on the people in the streets to help me.
Man, so it's funny that you say that about the reconciliation of families.
Mm-hmm.
So 8 years ago, I started a program called Group Therapy, GROOP, Getting Relationships Out of Pause. And it was spurred by a few conversations that I was having with people that were in my life at the time, and we would always end up having these table discussions about relationships. And they were like, Steve, you're like a relationship guru. And I said, well, I know my way around relationships. And they were like, you should do something with that. And so I came up with group therapy. And it was funny, I was still in school at the time working on my bachelor's degree, or finishing it up actually. And I realized that the program that I designed a whole curriculum. It was a whole 20-week program. And I figured, because I know a lot of people in the Inland Empire, I figured people would be curious, but I didn't think it was going to do what it did. It took off more than I had time for. And I was like, I don't have time for this like I thought I did, so I had to shut it down. But thinking about what you are talking about and bringing families and children and people together, that's exactly what group therapy was about. Because our focus was, let's cover every dynamic of every relationship. I don't care if you're coworkers. That way we could bring it into a corporate setting. But people even now keep asking me, hey, when are you going to bring group therapy back? He's like, give me a minute. I'm going to reintroduce that in a minute. But I said that to say, I'm thinking about something pertaining to your own reconciliation. You said that you were molested at a very young age,
Mm-hmm.
but you were left with a pleasant stimulation
Yeah.
that mirrored it or showed itself often in your sex working journey.
Mm-hmm.
At what point, because now you've shifted from this depressed, dark person to a angel of light, so to speak. But what happened that made Jayla, the self-esteem queen, go, not only do I need to stop doing this, but I need to rescue people who are stuck in what I was stuck in? Because, for a person to say, at 8, it wasn't supposed to feel good, but it really did. And so I wanted to pursue that feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And it legitimizes the darkest parts of us when we can feel good about something that we're not supposed to experience the way we're experiencing it.
Mm-hmm.
And so at some point, something has to happen where you go, that's not right. You should feel that, but not that way, not in that context, not in this storyline. When did that happen? Because you turned into a motivational speaker and you're rescuing people, and why? What happened?
So a part of it was, me going through the forgiveness process with my mom.
Okay.
And having to rescue her from the relationship that she abandoned me for in the first place. So
that's powerful.
So when I graduated from college, my mom stayed with this man for 11 years. And I told my mom, don't call me until you're ready to leave.
Mm.
And when she was ready to leave, I drove from LA to Riverside. And they lived in like some weird area. And I called 2 of my uncles. And we went and we got all her shit and got her out of there.
Okay.
But I was still very angry with my mom.
Yes.
And over the years, I bought my mom a house. I mean, I've helped my mom through a number of things, but learning how to forgive without the help of a therapist, without the help of medication, just learning how to forgive and then using the principles from the Bible as my basis for forgiveness is what really sort of catapulted me.
Okay.
Because I had to learn how to do that myself. Nobody taught me.
Yeah, I get it. I understand that.
And most people would say, and people still say, I don't know how you forgive your mom. I don't know how I would never talk to my mom again.
Yeah.
Well, I have a sibling that is completely no contact with my mom. And my mom lives with me. And I retired my mom. And I've been taking care of my mom and stuff like that for over 12 years.
Wow.
And the only way that I can help other people is through my own life experience. I don't help people through things I don't know. So I had to go through the forgiveness process. And then as I became an adult and was in bad relationships, God showed me, this is what your mom went through. This is why your mom couldn't leave.
Mm-hmm.
So I would feel those things. And I would tell her, like, I realized what you were going through with so-and-so. Like, I get it now. And it would help me to forgive her. So my level of empathy was raised by my horrible experiences with men, with friends, and otherwise. Like, that's how I gained such a high level of empathy. And that empathy is what I've used to rescue kids, because you have to rescue a teenager 4, 5, 6 times before they realize they shouldn't be on the street.
Sure.
And you can't go into the rescue. Here we are again. You can't go, you can't go into it like that.
Yeah.
You really have to go into it like.
You have to have mercy and grace.
Correct.
Yeah.
And you have to just realize that kids don't have their cognitive thinking skills aren't fully developed.
Mm-hmm. They don't have anything going on up here.
Correct. And so you have to maintain that grace.
Yes,
And
yes.
the grace that I wasn't given, I decided to give that to other people, including
Okay.
my mom.
That makes sense. See, that puts a nice bow on that, because people transition from one thing to another in life all the time, but they don't change. They're the same person, just
Correct.
transitioning from one step to the next.
Correct.
And without knowing that there were some things or some catalysts that took place in your life that that allowed you to turn a corner, because you turned a very, very sharp corner. Matter of fact, you turned several sharp corners.
I did.
Um, it's without knowing how those corners were navigated. What was the turbo boost to get you to go around those corners? Without knowing that, people are left with a story that's incredible, but hard to see how you go from this point to this point.
Yeah.
And yeah, therapy. Yes, I am an advocate for therapy. My mom is a therapist. She's a clinical psychologist. I was a anger management therapist. I stopped doing that work because I would get mad at the people that didn't want to do their work. It's like, you know what? You want to come here and just bleed
right,
all over
right,
me,
right,
but you don't want to do
vent
when
and
when
trauma
when we
dump.
get to the stuff, then you don't want to talk
You
about
don't
it.
want
It's
to do
like
the real
I
work.
don't want to do this no more.
Correct.
This ain't fun for me. My mom has begged me for years. Oh, Steve, you should be a therapist. I said, well, I worked as a hairstylist for 33 years. I've had several clients on the couch. I don't need to talk to anybody else in that regard. So, yeah, so I get it. Therapy is powerful, and the determination of self to say, I want to get better.
And I think that's a part of the self-esteem queen. It's like I name myself that not out of ego, but I name myself that because I became the master of my own self-esteem.
Sure.
After living a life where my self-esteem wasn't nurtured, after living a life where people would step on my self-esteem,
sure,
then I had to get to this place. And therapy didn't get me here. Medication didn't get me here. Being locked in a psych ward didn't get me here, because I had those experiences too.
Yeah.
That didn't get me here. It really was me saying, I don't want my younger sibling to have to go through what I'm going through. I still have a very close relationship with my younger sibling, even though my sibling is no contact with my mom. And so I've had to navigate I've had to navigate very tricky familial relationships while respecting people's boundaries, even to this day.
Yeah.
And so I understand where my sibling is coming from, and I respect it.
Sure.
And I know why I forgave, and I respect that too.
Right.
And I can just imagine, what my mom went through. I totally forgive her. But there were areas where she needed to heal too.
Sure.
And I feel like I've helped aid and guide her in that healing process.
Isn't that something? I used to have a saying that became popular in a church I was one of the leaders at. You get to choose. And that is the most dynamic aspect of this thing called free will. No matter what trauma you face, no matter what circumstances you find yourself in, you still get to choose what's going to happen next. What am I going to do now? Now, yes, our choices are often hindered by our mind, our mental conditioning, and all of that. But I know some people, when they've had enough, it's like, all right, I've had enough. I can't take this no more. They choose something different, and then they go on that path. And even your path of forgiveness, you chose to do that.
And I've forgiven a lot of people.
Oh, you certainly had a lot to Jesus.
I've forgiven a lot of people. And that forgiveness and grace doesn't allow them all back into my life. So,
Right.
so
Right.
I can
No,
forgive and love you
absolutely
from
not.
afar.
Yes.
I love
Yeah.
you from afar.
People have very misconstrued understanding about the concept of forgiveness. They have attached forgive and forget to the Bible,
Mm-hmm.
and that's not there.
Mm-hmm.
And Maya Angelou often said it best about when people show you who they are.
Believe them.
So I'm bound by the grace and the law of God to forgive you. I ain't gotta mess with you.
Mm-hmm.
I ain't gotta roll with you
Mm-hmm.
ever again.
Mm-hmm.
If I see you, or not, I may or may not speak, but I don't have to rock with you.
Correct.
I don't have to be bound to you because I forgave you. All right, I
Correct.
forgave you, so you get to stick me again. No, no, you do not.
Yeah.
No, you do not. I know that you in the sticking business, so you don't pause. You don't get to.
At
It's
all.
like no, you don't get to do that. So I get it. I had a journey that I had to go through with my father with forgiveness, and it was quite a powerful journey. So I understand everything you're saying, and oddly enough, that piece makes all of this make sense to me now. Your entire journey, oddly enough, from the outside looking in, is anchored in forgiveness.
Mm-hmm. Every single thing I do is anchored in forgiveness, and even as an adult, I cut people out of my life. Like every quarter, I take time to reassess people who have immediate access to me.
Yeah.
I do it every quarter. And there are people that they get the forewarning because it's never personal.
Sure. What does the forewarning look like? I'm curious.
So people get close to me in different ways and for different reasons. So
okay.
Common day, I'm a Reiki master teacher, so I do Reiki, energy healing.
Mm-hmm.
I do life coaching, and I still mentor youth and young adults. So people will get close to me because this is the work that I do, and they love this work that I do. But what people don't realize is that I have a very low capacity to help my friends. So I don't help my friends for free.
Right on.
And if you call me and vent to me, and I let you know in a nice way that I don't have that capacity, and then you do it again, you getting cut off. because I have friends that are therapists.
Okay.
And I just talked about this on TikTok yesterday. I have friends that are therapists, and I don't ask them to give me any free work. And I also maintain the boundary of our friendship, right? It would be a conflict of interest for them to even counsel me or give me therapy because we know each other. So I don't put them in a friend situation where I'm venting to them about something. I have friends that are dentists. I don't ask them for free dental work. I have friends that are doctors. I have friends that are lawyers. I don't ask them for free work. And so I take offense to people who get close to me and they get comfortable enough to just trauma dump on me when there are other people who pay for that.
Right.
And so, I let people know, I cut people off every 3 months. It's not personal.
You got 90 days. Matter of fact, you got 70 days. You already 20 in.
I mean, and there are, so the people who last in friendship with me are people that don't need me. I don't want to talk to you every day. I don't want you to text me every week. I don't go to weddings. I don't go to baby showers. I rarely go to funerals. I just went to one. It was super important. But I just don't get emotionally involved with people because people are just so finicky. And it's easier for me to be the friend that you see every now and again. I'm not the friend that's going to sit and catch up. I'm working.
Yeah.
I'm on Vision for God. I'm working. And I work 7 days a week. And people have to understand that I work for fun. What do you do in your downtime? I work. I have 2 different businesses. I work.
So another exhale. So first of all, I need you to know that what you just said, you have articulated my philosophy. You and I were clearly supposed to be connected. And don't worry, in 90 days, you won't have to evict me. I periodically go through my phone. People say that I'm such a straight shooter that sometimes it stings.
Mm-hmm.
So, to keep people from being bruised, sometimes I just go through my phone and delete numbers. Like, I don't need this number.
I'm the same.
Me and this person haven't talked, or me and this person have something that they don't want to resolve. Because I'm all about conflict resolution.
Correct.
But you can't. That's a two-way street.
It is.
So if you don't want to have that conversation with me, then we don't have anything to talk about.
Correct. And if you aren't big on accountability, we don't have anything.
Yeah, we don't have nothing to talk about. So because I don't have a problem apologizing. I don't have a problem. Did I do something wrong? Oh no, we good. Okay, but you're not treating me like we good. So if I did something wrong, I don't have a problem addressing it and making amends. Let's fix it. Oh, you don't have nothing to say? Because it's you. I got it. So delete. so you've alluded to businesses, public speaker, life coach, Reiki healer,
which is so Reiki is a Japanese energy healing technique.
Yeah.
Right, where I take my energy and transfer it to somebody else.
Sure.
And I take it very seriously. I've been doing it for 18 years. And I take it seriously because there are so many people who pretend to heal or pretend that they really love God. And then you see them outside of work and you realize that that's not how. So who I am when I'm healing is who I am outside of work. And in order for me to be morally and ethically clear within myself, I like to make sure I don't have any drama going on in my life. Sure. So I don't want people to bring me their drama unless you're ready to resolve it.
Yeah.
You know, like I told my mom, don't call me till you're ready to leave that nigga.
Yeah.
When she was ready to leave, I was there.
Right.
I was there.
Right. Because she's not a child.
She's not a child.
You're rescuing children, understanding that children have a propensity to go back and forth.
Correct.
But you're not a child, so I can't come and get you and then pack you up and then you tell me 3 weeks later, get my stuff and bring it back to
right.
Right. I had a friend who, good friend of mine. He was married to a chick I introduced him to. I didn't know her like that. I just knew that she was his physical type. And so, I was like, hey man, I met this girl. I think you dig her. She's your vibe. She's your type, That means meet her and then get to know her. Well, he jumped quick, and the next thing you know, he was married. Maybe a year into that, he calls me. Hey man, can you come get me? I need a ride to work. Where's your car? She took the car. Okay, when's she coming back? No, man. When I came home, she took the car and she took all my stuff.
Wow.
What? Like, and he was real big into, and this is back in the day, but he was real big into stereos. He had the most incredible sound system in his house. There just wasn't enough that he would add to it. She took all of that. And I said, she took the stereo? Not the stereo. Like, she don't even like music. And he would play music all the time. She'd be, can you turn that down? I said, oh, okay. So what's the plan? You gonna get your stuff back? You gonna go to court? Man, I don't know, man. Can you come get me? I gotta go to work. And he worked in my salon. I said, cool, man. I'm on my way. So I get him. We go to work. And this goes on this way for a few weeks. Then she comes back. What are you doing? And then he calls me again. Now this time he don't need a ride because he got his car. She didn't take his car this time. He gets home from work. Man, you're not gonna believe this. What? And we had to express it. She rolled up the house again. What? She did that like 3 times. I was like, bro, really? Is that what you're going to keep going back to?
That's a horrible pattern.
That's terrible, man. I was like, bro, come on, man. What she got? What's wrong with you? Why you keep going back to that? 1 time, I get it. 2 times, I don't don't know, but 3, like, come on, bro.
You a glutton for punishment at this
Come on,
point.
man. Yes, yes. Like, come on, man. Like, you that cycle has got to break for you. It's clear she got some issues, but you need to break that.
Yeah.
And so I get it. With adults, you can't play that game. You get on a merry-go-round with people, and they'll find a way to be fascinated with you being on the merry-go-round with them.
Correct. And I'm not gonna co-sign your BS. So that's the
Mm-mm.
other thing. It's like, I'm not gonna co-sign you being in an abusive relationship or you being the abuser.
Right.
I'm not gonna co-sign you gossiping about other people that may not be my friend, but maybe your. I cut friendships off for things small like that.
I feel you, and I feel you.
Because that speaks to people's character.
It does.
And I know what my character is. I know how I got here.
Sure.
And I also realize that people put on a facade. And then when that wears off and people get comfortable, then you get to know the real person.
Mm-hmm.
Who I am right here is who I am everywhere.
Yeah.
It doesn't change.
Yeah.
And I realize that people change.
Yeah.
So I give people that 90 days. But here's the thing. I don't want people to feel like, oh, it's such a, it's so hard to be your friend. It's not that. I don't want to deal with other people's bullshit.
Yeah.
When my whole career is built on helping people. Yeah. Like, that's what I do. So I don't want to, in the friendship, I don't want to have to be helping you.
So I liken it to, I believe it's in the book of Galatians where it says, bear ye one another's burdens and so fulfill the law of Christ. And people stop there. But if you read down a little further, it says, but let every man bear his own. And so I'm constantly telling people, if you've got that weight on your back and you're carrying it and you're trying to get where you're trying to go, I will help, because we've been called to bear one another's burdens. But that's only if you're carrying it. Mm-hmm. It is not my job to take the backpack off of your back
and put it on
that belongs to you and put it on my back.
Say that.
That's like what? And then you get to, well, come on, let's run over here. I'm tired. Right. You didn't kill me. You done worn me out.
Right.
Because they get used to carrying that stuff because they're not carrying it with the intention of dumping it.
Exactly what
they
you
carry
just said.
It with the intention of it just being a part of, it's become a growth.
Correct.
On their back, but they want to attach the wires to you.
Correct.
And then it's like, nah, man, I can't do this with you.
Correct.
I cannot. I love you, but I love me a little more.
I love more. That's right.
I can't rock with you like that.
Yeah.
I like you. I honestly, when we talked on the phone, I was just curious about your story. But now that I've heard a lot of what you have to say and heard you, I find a lot of similarities between us. Which makes sense for Mike to even say, man, you need to rap with her.
Yeah.
Because she's good people. And he
knows
told
me
you
well.
the same thing about me.
Yeah, he did.
But I do want to talk about your entrepreneurial pursuits.
Okay.
What is Jayla, the self-esteem queen, doing to make money? Now, I know that you're a public speaker, so depending on where you're speaking at, you're making money doing that.
I retired from that now.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. See, she's using big words. Retired is a big word because most folk, if they have not set themselves up financially, when they done with something, they just quit.
So I retired from that because speaking in high schools is different these days. And I said I don't have a tolerance. And I'm one of those people that when I come and speak, I demand the attention and the respect of the audience.
Sure.
And if the school can't maintain their students, I can't come.
Right, because it's not your job to do that.
That's not my job. I'm also not the motivational speaker that's, wave your hands in the air and, with all the theatrics. Like, I'm not that one. I come to change your life in an hour. Yeah. Like, that's what I do.
Yeah.
So I am not a speaker, although people do still call on me to speak.
Sure.
But I have a nonprofit, and it's called the 𝐸_QUE, Self-Esteem Queen.
Yeah.
Hope Foundation. Hope stands for Hold On, Possibilities Exist. And
I'm sorry. Hold On,
Possibilities
exist.
Mhm.
All right, I got it. Hope, yes.
And we basically teach emotional intelligence to at-risk youth across America.
Mhm.
We do suicide and depression prevention, and we feed the unhoused. And we also do financial literacy. And that has been the most fulfilling thing that I do. And then I have an online store that is the sole fundraiser for my foundation.
Okay.
And it's called Light the Mood. We make candles.
Right. You
Right.
mentioned that before. Yes.
We make luxury candles, and we employ survivors of sex trafficking.
Okay.
So the candle company is how I raise funds for the nonprofit. And then I have a consulting company called the Tell Me Truth Group. And I do consulting, empathy training. Like everything that I do is really, I have different businesses, but we all do the same thing.
Right.
So
they complement one another.
Correct.
Yes.
So the Tell Me Truth Group, we do curriculum writing, we do empathy training, and also financial literacy. But we write curriculum for schools, for school districts. And then I also do a lot of consulting through the Tell Me Truth Group for people who are in the entertainment industry who are looking to either do like a show, a movie, or something about sex trafficking, but they want the storyline to be authentic.
Mm-hmm.
Then I do consulting for that.
Sure.
So, and I think I told you about the movie that
There's a movie,
Skin in the Game.
Yes, because kind of based loosely on your life.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And I really just, I like to do things where my expertise can be used. And I've been doing this, I've been talking about the same stuff for over 20 years. I've never deviated.
Mm-hmm.
I've never ran off the track. I've been making candles for over 20 years. I've been teaching emotional intelligence for over 20 years. And, you know, Reiki, I have a business called Healing in the Trap, because I used to hoe in the trap. Now I heal in the trap. And I do Reiki and energy healing, crystal healing, and stuff like that for people.
Do you find any conflict of interest between Reiki and Christianity for you?
So I'm an ordained minister that doesn't preach in a church. I've been an ordained minister for 10 years, and I had a lot of questions that while I was going to school to be a minister, they couldn't answer for me. And I don't have the conflict, although some people do.
Sure.
But also I'm out of my spiritual psychosis. And so I believe that God in all his infinite power isn't just based in Christianity. I mean, I know a lot of peaceful Buddhists.
Sure.
I know a lot of peaceful people who are in Hinduism. And I know a lot of people that start a lot of mess that are Christians. And so I try to be the change that I want to see in Christianity. But I solely currently practice an African tradition called 𝐸𝐹, which is like the sister religion of like Santeria, like a Cuban, and where I do a lot of ancestor veneration, and I, do a lot of work with nature. And I find peace in just having the knowledge of all of these different religions. So I don't see the conflict. I see where other people could, because, the same way that people don't believe an evangelist can tell your future, right? So you have some evangelists in church and they'll stand up and they'll tell your future, right?
Operate in the prophetic, yes.
Right, but then they don't believe in psychics. But you both could have the same gift, and you're just in different places teaching a gift.
Right.
That's how I feel about religion. I believe that there's something great to learn from most religions. Not all, but there's something great to learn. And if you're a lifelong learner, then you take the good parts of each, right? So for me, Reiki is just the part of me that, like, I can't give to everybody my energy, but in a Reiki session, I can take my energy and literally remove somebody else's energy by replacing it with mine.
Hmm.
And the fact that I know that it happens and I see the results, that helps me to understand that Jesus wasn't the only person walking the earth doing this type of healing work.
Hmm.
We all are capable.
Well, he said that.
Yes.
Yeah, he said, greater works than these will you do.
Correct.
And he was referring to all the people who would follow him afterwards. Yeah.
Correct. So it's another modality of how I help people.
Okay.
But I have my own life mottos. Like, I teach people how to seek, say, and live the truth. And that really is what my life is all about. And anything outside of that, I don't focus on. I only focus on helping youth, helping stories to be authentic when they're told,
Mm-hmm.
and healing people.
Okay. So then your life, as you describe it now, is still very heavy. You carry a lot of responsibility.
Yeah.
So I gotta know, what does Jayla, the self-esteem queen, do for fun? What makes you laugh? What makes you smile? What that's not directly connected to your callings?
Being a parent.
Okay. All right.
Being a parent. But even that came with some trauma, you see. And so I don't know if you want me to tell you that story.
I you know, we've turned such a bright corner, but we need to know. You know, you're authentic, so tell me.
Sure. So
If you feel like telling
no,
me.
it's I think it's important, because for a long time, you know, I would just tell people, oh yeah, you know, my kids had a donor, because most people knew that I wasn't in a relationship. Yeah, my kids just have a donor. But the truth is, somebody that I mentored sexually assaulted me, and that produced twins. And I chose to keep the twins, who are now almost 13.
Wow.
And I can just recall, as a kid, I was the kid that was least likely to ever have children. And I would always tell people, I'm never going to have kids, because it would have to be a perfect scenario. I'd have to have twins, a boy and a girl, and one would have to be extroverted and one would have to be introverted. I got exactly what I spoke into existence as a teenager. And, you know, for a long time, because I'm so healed, I was embarrassed to tell people that I had been sexually assaulted. I was embarrassed.
Sure.
Like, I don't want people
You're
to know
the
that.
champion of such things.
Right. I don't want people to know that. And being a parent is what I do for fun. I love being a parent.
I can imagine that after the trauma that you have lived through in your adolescent life and then overcoming it, to have that experience 13 years ago, or actually technically more like 14 years ago now, that had to set you back.
It didn't set me back, but it just made me disappointed, because this is somebody that I mentored, somebody that I helped to start a business.
Yeah.
And to do that and then not be accountable was a hard pill to swallow. It made me feel like the mentoring that I gave this person was in vain.
Yeah.
All the hard work was in vain. That was the most hurtful part.
Smoke screen.
Yeah.
They had a different intention and a different focus.
Correct.
Probably the entire time.
Correct.
You know, I know that politically in our country right now, we got, Roe v. Wade being overturned, and people using the argument of incest and rape as part of the reason why it should not have been. Without going down the political rabbit hole, why did you decide? Because that was clearly previous to the overturning of Roe v. Wade.
Correct.
And we're in California, so it doesn't matter one way or the other. Why did you decide to keep the children?
At the time, one of my closest friends was Corinne Steffens. Most people know her as
Superhead.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
somehow, I don't know, it came to me earlier in this conversation that we're having. Somehow I knew that you knew her.
She is the reason why I kept my children. Because I definitely, I wasn't planning on it. And she talked me into keeping my children. We're no longer friends, but I love her forever for that. Because knowing her past and sort of what she's been through and put other people through, you know, she'd probably be the least likely to, you know, but that advice, you know, she told me, she was like, you know, if it was just one kid I could see, but God is not going to forgive you if you, I mean, it's two. And so, you know, she's the reason that I kept my twins. She is I can't attribute it to anything else. I would be lying if I did. Interesting.
So, seeing that you brought her up, we didn't talk about this. Did you do porn?
I did not.
Were you ever propositioned to do porn?
Never, not once.
Interesting. You know, people often think, okay, well, you know, prostitution on any level usually will lead to the strip club or porn or both or that whole thing. Did you do the strip club?
Never knew how to dance. Still don't know how to dance. I don't have it in me. I don't have any rhythm. I would like to attribute that to the white side of my family. I don't have any rhythm.
Okay.
And then my whole life, I've always had a thing with being embarrassed. So one of the reasons why I hoed in the trap house was because I didn't want to be on the street corner because I didn't want to be embarrassed.
Right. You're able to be very clandestine.
Yes. One of the reasons why I was an escort and really wanted to get to know the people that were my repeat clients was I didn't want to be embarrassed.
Yeah.
I've always had a thing about being embarrassed. So I've just never wanted to do that. So strip club, nope. I knew too many people that went to strip clubs.
Yeah.
And, you know, I've never wanted to do porn. I never really saw the pleasure in that.
Sure.
And I do realize that those things last forever.
Yeah, you can't walk them back.
And so so I've always had the mental fortitude to say there are some things that you don't want to be around forever.
Right.
So I never did those things.
Right. Whew. You all right over there, Kaylin? I'm all right too, man. Okay, so your candle business is still thriving.
It is.
I'm gonna make sure that we put the link up too and all that stuff because people love candles. I got them all over my house.
People love candles, and 100% of the proceeds go back to the nonprofit. So, you know, we don't have any, you know, like overhead. Like, we really take the time to focus on where money needs to go. And right now, everything is being pivoted to online courses. So a lot of the stuff that I used to do in person, I'm just going to pivot it to online. You asked me what else I do for fun. I just finished writing a book with my children.
Okay.
And we're on the third book now. The first book was called Sometimes I Cry Because I'm Not Perfect. And it's just a true story of me being a parent.
Sure.
And, you know, the things that I go through and my kids being my support system, them being my cheerleaders and saying, well, no, you're good here. It's like I taught them emotional intelligence and now they turn around and use it on me when it's necessary.
Okay.
So I spend most of my time working. If I'm not working, I'm being a parent, but that's still working.
Sure. Yes. Yeah. I have a 14-year-old. Yes.
Yeah,
I
I
want my
spend.
life back.
Hey.
I tell him that almost at least once a week. I want my life back. I'm ready for you to go on where you're going. I'm tired. And you see all this white on my face. I'm tired.
Hey,
I have 2 adult children who are doing their thing. And this one, I'm like, dude, I need you to jump into a time machine or something.
I'm thankful that I have 2 at the same time. They can keep each other
Yeah,
company.
yeah,
They're great friends.
that's a blessing.
Yeah,
That's a
don't plan on
blessing.
having any more.
What are you doing with the books? Are they out? Are they available?
No, right now they're with the illustrator. So
Okay.
I'm just waiting. The second one is called All I Want for Christmas is a Real Dad.
Oh Lord.
And it's
Jesus, come on. That's what are we doing?
we're
You're attacking real stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And these are all just sort of things that, you know, we've been through. Like my kids are going through the process of being adopted right now. And, you know, my daughter, I taught her about the law of attraction. She had put a note under her pillow that said she wanted a real dad. And, you know, someone that has been my friend for a long time is adopting my children and, you know, helping them to see what a healthy co-parenting situation is.
Sure.
And our dynamic is completely different than most people's. I mean, we have a co-parenting agreement. He's adopting them, you know, but we live in 2 separate houses. We have our own lives because he had his life before I came to him for this. And
are you a couple?
We are a couple.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But we still have our own lives.
Yeah, yes. Okay.
And he has known me long enough to understand that this is the best way that it could be.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Hell yeah.
You know, when you know, I haven't had to tell him my boundaries because he knows me well enough to know when he's texting the kids. I know what the text messages say. Like we're very open and transparent. And because we're friends, there's no reason for me to want to mess the friendship up. So my twins get to see a very healthy co-parenting situation where they see 2 loving partners.
Sure.
Where they see accountability between a man and a woman. My children are learning gender roles because a part of me is very traditional. I believe a man should be the head of the household. And even though we don't live together, he's the head of the household. So I respect him as that. They get to see us have friendly debates. They get to see us agree to disagree respectfully. And they get to see what it's like to have a father who chooses you and then chooses to love you. Because when I got pregnant, I made a choice to have them. Right. And I made a choice to be a full-time hands-on mom. My kids have never had a babysitter. They've never had a nanny. It's only been my mother who's ever watched my children. They've never experienced trauma like they've never, nothing.
Do they know who their father is, their biological father, and the history?
Yeah, so they met their donor. They met their donor, and it was a horrible experience. And shortly after...
How old were they?
This was 2 years ago.
Oh, they were.
Yeah,
okay.
It was 2 years ago. And they've met part of the donor's family. But in order for the donor to be a part of their family, he'd have to tell the truth that he assaulted me. And so he's held on to that lie.
Yeah.
But they met him because I reached out to the family and I wanted to make sure I knew who he was. Sure. But I wanted to make sure that my children weren't the kids that are on paternity court when they grow up. Like, I don't know who my parent is, right?
The DNA test results.
Correct.
98%.
Yes.
Yeah.
I wasn't meaning for them to even meet him. It just so happens that I was going to drop off the test results to the great grandfather, and the donor was there. He didn't know I was going to be there. I didn't know he was there. And that resulted in me going to my friend and saying, I kind of need a mentor for my kids. This happened. And he was like, I'll be their daddy. You know what I mean? And they understand the reason why their donor isn't around.
Sure.
And they also understand that it's not their job to make them feel wanted.
Right.
So they're okay.
Mm-hmm.
I would have wished that it would have went different. Yeah. Not that he'd be a part of their life, but that they would have never met him at all.
Right.
Because there was nothing was gained out of that, except that they got to see why he's not around. Mm. And then subsequently, the family misses out on my children because, I'm one of those people, if I cut you off or if you do something, then everybody else is a casualty of the war.
Right.
So they were building a relationship with the great-grandfather, but it's like, ain't no love lost. We can't. So them meeting him resulted in them now having a real father.
Wow. Who
treats them like they're his blood, he's such a great father that I probably should have went to him a long time ago. I really should have. But I didn't want to put that burden off on somebody.
Right.
And it's been 2 years, such a pleasurable experience to co-parent with somebody who you love and you respect, and that you both have a common goal. And that common goal is for these kids to grow up in a healthy and stable environment, to see what it's like to have a 2-parent household, to see what it's like to be loved by 2 different parents, to be accountable. My son has someone who can teach him how to be a man. I can't teach him that. But then also they've seen me go from being a helicopter parent and really just anxiety riddled to just, being in love. And they didn't see that part of me.
Right.
To me being a more soft, feminine woman. Because for most of my life I've had to be very masculine of center.
Yeah.
So they weren't able to see the soft side of me.
Well, you've been fighting your whole life.
My whole life. All my life.
You are the poster child for unorthodoxy.
Yeah.
In almost every area.
Yeah.
But I dig it. I dig it. I feel like my mom used to always have the saying, life is filled with swift transitions. Just so many things can happen to us in the course of a moment. Mm-hmm. How we respond to those things in the moment and over time seem to dictate where we'll end up. And I gotta tell you, you have not been always successful at doing the Matrix. You've been hit by a lot of things. Neo was able to dodge a lot of things, but once he got hit by some of those bullets, mm-hmm. he was like, what? And then he made some adjustments.
Correct.
You have made some masterful adjustments. I'm telling you, you shouldn't be sitting here. With all that you've gone through, there's no way.
So let me tell you about the scripture that I have tattooed on my back. So I learned 2 scriptures as a kid. One was, of course, Exodus 20:12, to honor thy father and thy mm-hmm. mother. And the second was 2 Corinthians 12:7-10. And this is where Paul talks about his sufferings. Mm-hmm. And he says, to keep me from becoming conceited about the great revelation passed on to me, there was a thorn placed in my side.
A messenger.
3 times I pleaded with the Lord to take it away, but the Lord said, no, for my grace is sufficient.
Yes.
Therefore, I will delight in all insult, in all persecution, in all hardship, for when I am weak, then I am strong. Mm-hmm. And one of the main reasons why I'm so passionate about teaching emotional intelligence to young adults is because had I had that one thing, which is coping skills, I'd probably be a lot further ahead in life. Mm-hmm. And emotional intelligence is really the crux of how people can cope in society, no matter what's going on, no matter who's the
Yes.
president, no
Yes.
matter what the social, and economic climate is. When you have emotional intelligence,
Yes.
and you really focus on just being self-aware and managing your emotions and managing relationships and learning how to have empathy, working groups, and when you learn and master those things, you can be anywhere and work around anybody.
Yeah.
And be masterful in it.
Yeah. And people don't even understand the concept of it, but it's often aligned with academic intelligence. That's not something that you just wake up and you got it. There's certain things you have to do to become academically intelligent.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you might have some nuance, or you might have a gift to be able to process information faster or more naturally inclined to it. But you still, if you don't open up a book, you won't have that information.
Correct.
But once you open up and consume the information, now you're intelligent to that thing. You have the ability to give out what you, or put out what you've just taken in.
Correct.
And emotional intelligence is the same way. You know thyself. And then, because I did anger management teaching, I had to teach people, you got to understand what your triggers are and all other things. I said, but I want to take you past that. I want to get you to where you're past the triggers. And that's where the work gets real nasty.
Correct.
And most people don't want to go that far.
Correct. Because
it's the way
hard.
I am. I get mad when they do such and such. Okay.
Why?
Well, let's talk, because see, you feel good in just being able to say to them, I get mad when you do. Like, but do we have to be mad all the time?
Mm-hmm.
Aren't you exhausted?
Correct.
That's gotta be tiring. Let's go there. Oh man, I don't want to talk about all that.
and it's like when people don't, as a life coach, my nickname is Intolerable Cruelty, because I'm a life coach, but if you're not ready to do the work, please don't contact me.
Yeah.
Because I don't make excuses in life. I make adjustments.
Right.
I don't spend a lot of time focused on feeling sorry for myself, and I don't allow other people to do that either.
That's right.
And there's, people say that I have ruthless compassion, because it's like, I don't think that everybody should have went through what I went through. But it's like, now, if I can go through all of this,
right,
and you're coming to me to get the help, you have to know that we're going to have to do some shadow work. We're going to have to peel back the layers that are causing you to have this sort of response to these sort of situations.
Mm-hmm.
We have to understand why you keep dating the same type of man in different form. We have to understand why your friendships aren't lasting. We have to understand why you're not taking accountability. And let's focus on the wheel of emotions. I'm really big on the wheel of emotions. It's like people only think of anger. It's like, no, there's a whole myriad of emotions.
Yeah.
You may be thinking you're angry, but you could just be disappointed.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't take the time to really focus on what you are, you're going to, I'm mad. Maybe you're not that.
Right.
Maybe it's not that. So I really wish that, more people understood that when you come to somebody for help, you should probably be ready to receive the help, and whatever that entails. When you go to a gym and you get upsold by the personal trainer, right?
Big buff trainer.
Right. He gonna have you doing everything that you need to do, and you can't stop mid-training because you're paying for it.
Right.
So it's like, you're not gonna stop like, I just can't. You're gonna push yourself.
Right.
And I encourage people to do that in their own mental and emotional healing as well.
Yeah. That to me, that's the only way that you can really be successful in any therapeutic environment. And it's one of the reasons why I declined to go that route. Now, I've done therapy. I love therapy. But being a therapist, I've seen more people than not, they're addicted to therapy. They're not addicted to healing.
Correct.
So you want to come dump on me at whatever my hourly rate is forever and ever and ever.
Right.
You just want to bleed. You like you got a fresh vein every time you come. I'm gonna
Yes.
cut this one. I was like, I told my mom, I said, I don't have the bandwidth for that.
See, in
I
therapy,
didn't told him like Bob Newhart, stop it. Just stop it. I got 2 words for you. You can pay me for the hour, you can pay me right now. Stop it.
See, in therapy, I really took the approach of, here are the things that I feel like I need to work on. I gave my therapist a list. She was amazing. I gave her a list. And over the years, we worked on those things. So, but each thing, so it wasn't, I had something to work on to get over and then go to the next thing. And then I finally ended it with parenting. And when I got what I needed, I got out of therapy.
Right.
And I think that also is something that in friendships and in working relationships that I try to really get people to understand. I don't want you to come to me forever as a life coach, because then that doesn't mean that I'm doing my job.
No, they become your other child. They become an appendage.
Correct. And
a part of you.
And I'm not here to make $1. I'm here to make a difference. So yes, I'll take the money for the services.
Yeah, I want the dollar.
Right.
I do want the dollar.
I'll take the money for the services rendered, but I'm not gonna upsell you that you need me so much so that's the reason why you're here. No, I want you to graduate from this.
Yeah. No, I've got a post series package for another 6 weeks.
Correct.
No, man, no.
Correct.
You birds equip their young with enough nutrient to get strong enough for them to push them out of the nest. The ones that fly, fly. The ones that don't, never were. They were never going to fly. So you get to choose.
That's correct.
So I like it. I like that you came to therapy with an agenda.
Correct.
And I like it. Well, Jayla, the self-esteem queen, you have certainly helped me to understand why you are called that. I'm a fan.
Thanks a lot.
It's funny because, again, we talked back in December, and I'm not super active on social media because I too run a business that doesn't have anything to do with the podcast, and a father, and I got a lot going on, a husband and all that stuff. So I find myself with my phone playing games to keep my mind sharp. I spend more time playing games than I spend on social media.
Right.
But I mentioned earlier, you're not often on there. And so every time I see you on there, oh, she posted something. Let me check this out. And now that I've sat with you for this however long we've been going, I'm like, man, so I don't want to invade her space. But now I need to see a little more of her. So I said that to say, every now and then, I'm just going to text you and ask a question.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Or make a comment or just check on you. Because I believe, minus the trauma journey, my trauma journey is legitimately my journey, but it is nowhere nearly as intense as yours. However, trauma impacts everybody in its own way.
Correct.
But outside of that, how you're navigating through life and your philosophy about a lot of things, we share common ground. And I like to stay connected with people who I connect with.
I agree.
I like to build, I call it bridge building. I like to build bridges with people who I believe I can build a bridge with. I've had to tear some bridges down. Get the jackhammers, bring them on out, tear it all down. But I like you, and I'm fascinated by your overcoming spirit.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, fascinated by that. So I appreciate you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, the pleasure, trust me, was all mine. I know that Kaylin and I are going to talk about this episode for a while because you've said a lot. You shared a lot, but you also shared a lot of wisdom about where someone else who might be in any one of the shoes, because you've been in a lot of different
shoes.
traumatic shoes.
Correct.
Any one of those shoes, you shared enough that however 12 or 15 followers I got will see this, will go, that's how I need to navigate.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I need to do this. That's how I need to get out of this.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for coming.
Thank you.
This is Life Interrupts Us. Your life has truly been interrupted, but you're an overcomer. And I love it.
Thank you.
I love it. Now, I want to have you back because I want to dive more into your entrepreneurial tactics. When a person graduates from college, the natural progression is that they get a job and they live their life in that career.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but you have already clearly articulated that you did that and then said, I don't want to do that anymore.
Tried that, hated it.
Right. And so you have survived and thrived for decades now doing your own thing.
Correct. And doing it without being popular on social media.
Right.
So
That part
still,
right there.
I'm still very much.
That's the real magic.
Yeah.
But because of that, I want to. So season 3 we're doing. Season 4. My wife kind of said no. Season 3 we gotta focus on educators. But season 4 we're doing entrepreneurs because I'm also an entrepreneur. I'm not just a creative. I own a business. But I want to have you come back. And now that we're friends, and we got a connection, I know we'll be able to have another organic, because this was way more organic than I thought it was going to be. I thought I was going to have to pull out a clipboard and just ask you a bunch of questions. But we'll be able to have a really organic conversation about how to navigate in the business world doing you.
Yeah.
Instead of capitulating to, well, I got to become that.
Correct.
And because now the thing now is that's popular is people are selling their brand. They're not just branding their brand, they're selling it. So They want people to be duplicates of them. Mm-hmm. You need to do this the way I did it in order to be successful. Mm-hmm. No, I don't. I just need to know how you did it.
Correct.
And then I can appropriate myself to it. But you, I believe, you have a master key with that simply because, if for no other reason, you've done what you've done without really engaging social media.
Correct.
That in this last 10 years is a phenom. Mm-hmm. It's a phenom. That you're not hearing of that unless you're a banker or, in some financier world. You're not hearing it. And heck, even now, you're seeing all the guys getting on social media to do their stock market stuff. Mm-hmm. So you've done that. Without that, we need some of your secrets.
Sure.
So I'm going to have you come back. But I thank you for coming today.
Thank you so much.
For being a most gracious guest. And I love you. I want to tell you that. I love you.
And that's my favorite thing. I love you, and there's absolutely, positively nothing you can do about it.
That's my mama's thing. She says that all the time. She closes out with that. You'd like her. And I'm going to see you again. I'm going to talk to you soon. Blessings. This is Life Interrupts Us. And Jayla, the self-esteem queen, has blessed us with her presence today, and I'm better for it. And I hope that when you view this, you will be too. Y'all be good. Let's talk about suicide prevention. If you need to talk to someone and you've thought about harming yourself, or you know someone that's thought about harming themselves, call or text 988 for confidential support 24/7. It's a suicide and crisis lifeline. Did you know that child sex trafficking is a thriving industry in Los Angeles? If you know a minor who is being trafficked, please reach out to the SEQ Hope Foundation for assistance. You can reach them at seqhopefoundation.org. That's www.seqhopefoundation.org. Be the difference that you want to see.
Seems to take so long.